Hi, moms. Welcome back to another episode of Moms After Dark. We are super lucky to have an incredible guest with us today by the name of Jessica. She is somebody you're going to want to make friends with. She has an incredible history when it comes to early development, child psychology, and so much more. So I'm going to hand over the mic to Jessica to do a small introduction of who she is and a little bit about her career choice.
Hi, Tennille. Thanks so much for having me here today. My name is Jess. I'm a registered counsellor with the Health Professions Council of South Africa. Um, I studied educational psychology at Stellenbosch University, um, and I've always loved being super interested in all things child development. But when I had my own daughter, so she's a preemie, she was born at 30 weeks, and we had a NICU journey of 50 days ahead of us. That really pivoted my career into working with families more, working specifically with parents, and just supporting them on their journeys of parenting our kids. I just felt at that time there wasn't a lot of support, or I didn't feel there was a lot of support for parents. And working in a therapeutic space previously, a lot is focused around the child and what we need to do for the child. And yes, families play a role, but once becoming a parent, I found like, okay, wow, this is this is really hard work. It's a huge
Yeah.
emotional toll, and there's not a lot of space for just talking about all these things and how parents feel and how are we parenting, what are we doing. So that sort of pivoted my work, and yeah, so now I've been working in the space specifically with parents and young kids for 5 years now. So yeah, happy to be here today.
That's amazing. And I think I just want to give the moms some background. Jess and I had a little powwow session before we actually started recording our podcast. And it's so amazing to have not only another mom and a preemie mom on the podcast, but the similarities of just how we think as mothers and as mothers in this day and age was so nice. I
Mm.
was like, don't, let's not talk anymore because we need to press record. But I think if
Definitely.
we could get started, I know that you are one of the topics that you deep dive into is specific development challenges and early life experiences impacting the life of children. So, I think maybe take us on a little bit of a journey here, because from specific development challenges, what does that mean?
Tennille, I lost you there. I'm so sorry. Can I ask you just to repeat everything you just said?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the topic points is specific developmental challenges and early life experiences that impact the lives of children. I think this is a two-part question because I'd love to
Mm.
understand a little bit more about the specific developmental challenges in a little bit more detail that impact the life of children.
Okay. So if we look at early life experiences, it's difficult to go, this one thing is going to impact your child in this way forever. We exist in a context, we don't exist in isolation. So we have a lot of protective factors that buffer us against things that happen to us in our early childhood. When it comes to things like trauma, parental absence, exposure to drugs and alcohol, that can leave lasting impacts on development right across the developmental span.
Mm.
But then we also have to go, okay, well, what buffers or what assets do kids have? And the most important thing that our kids need when it comes to development is us as parents, right? There's a beautiful analogy of if we do everything right as parents, if we just create the environment, development will happen, right? If you think about a plant growing in soil, right? We can't make that plant grow. We can give it nutrients and we can water that soil, and then that plant will grow. We can't force it to grow anymore. And the same with our kids. I think in this day and age, there's a lot of information around, okay, well, you want your child to roll, you need to be doing X, Y, and Z. You want them to have the perceptual skills, okay, you need to be doing these puzzles, they need to be doing this many pieces by this age. But we forget about just being present with our kids, reflecting emotions in our kids, showing our kids that they delight us, that they can rest in us. And that, if we do that, development will happen. Does that make sense?
And I think it's so crucial what you've just said now is that we don't take time to reflect on certain things, but I think it goes on to something that we were talking about earlier, where as parents nowadays we are trying to create this perfect environment because we
Mm,
have this noise of social media, especially your platforms like TikTok, where you constantly seeing
yeah.
moms saying, "Don't do it this way because you'll give your child trauma. Do it this way."
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to highlight the fact that we're not saying these people are wrong, but we're saying
Mm,
there is no right way and there is no wrong way. The fact that you give your child a loving, caring, healthy environment is where you start and you grow from, not just as a parent, but for your child's development.
exactly. And then I know my parents are authentic. I know my parents safe. I know that I matter. I know that I belong. You know, there's so much information. I think this is what we were chatting about earlier as well. Is where do you go? Okay, that's enough, because you could just
Mm,
consume, 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 and one person will tell you, yes, you need to sleep train your baby, and the other saying like, oh my goodness, if you sleep train your baby is going to have insecure attachment, and they're never going to be able to do anything, and you'll destroy your baby. So a lot of it is also just going, okay, well, what aligns with us as parents, right? Not just me as a mom, but us as a parenting team. What are we what reflects our values and our morals, and what do we want to teach our kids? Obviously, yes, there
mm.
is a place for research and evidence-based research, right? That's what we want. We don't really want the opinion of like just someone on TikTok who thinks that they're a great parent. We need the
Yes.
research, but also then
Mm.
going, okay, well, what fits true to me? And in this space, what can I offer? I've seen like some TikTok reels and it's like, oh my goodness, if you send your child to daycare, like you're damaging them, they're never going to attach. And it's like, but sometimes they have a choice.
And I think those are the hardest ones. I know, particularly as a working mom for both of us, I think those are the hardest ones to watch because you naturally have mom guilt already for not being
Yeah.
able to spend that time with your child. But, you have to make a choice that's going to be beneficial for both you and that child at the end of the day. You have to fund this child's life. So they're going to
Mm,
have to go to daycare at some point in time. For some moms, it's earlier than others. But I think highlighting, that you're doing harm to your child is the worst thing that's being the noise that I talk about that's being broadcasted of if you're sending
yeah.
your child to daycare before the age of 2, you're giving them, lifelong trauma and you this and you that. And I think it's a terrible space as parents, not just as
Yeah.
moms, but as parents to be in because those decisions are always the hardest decisions, whether you're a breastfeeding
Of
mom, not
course.
a breastfeeding mom. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I have more trauma from sending my child to daycare than my child does. I mean, now he walks in and he doesn't even say goodbye to me. So, he looks forward to these things, but obviously getting there is very difficult. And it's so important to hear your perspective on this as somebody that does this professionally. Are these the early life experiences that are going to impact our child in a negative manner or a positive manner?
Absolutely not. And the majority of us as parents are doing the best that we can. Yes, we should strive to do better and be more informed. But if our child is connected to us, can rest in us, development will happen. We're not going
Yes.
to ruin them forever. Development will happen if we provide those conditions of feeling loved and feeling secure, and that they can still depend on us. Just because your kid goes to daycare at the age of 2, they still depend on you. You're still doing the parenting, right? You have a village, you have a team, and if we look back to years and years ago, that was how child rearing happened. You had this massive team of support, and your child had all of these wonderful people who cared for you. But now we live in this society where it's about the individual, and you need to do things by yourself and what you believe and what you think. And if there are more people in the world who are safe and educated, like how great that they can give your child love. I mean, I look
Yeah.
at my son's teacher, he's 2 this year. I would not think of half the things she does with her kids. I think it's amazing. And he adores her. She's such an
Yeah.
asset in our community. Um, and I don't think there's, like with daycare or with breastfeeding, there's no right or wrong. It's what can we do? But again, if you have that secure attachment to your kid, development's going to happen.
And that's so interesting. It sort of leads on to the next topic is when we talk about parent-infant attachment, we're talking about a bond that everybody says should happen immediately. When you fall
Yeah.
pregnant, you start bonding with your child. The father doesn't necessarily have that bond, immediately or right away because he's not carrying the child. But when the child is born, I think this is a huge myth that needs to be cracked at some point in time. That not all mothers bond immediately with their child, and that bond can take some time to develop. And again, it's not trying to call mothers out to say, it's because you didn't breastfeed that you don't have that bond, or,
Mm-mm.
breastfeeding leads to that bond, or, those sorts of things. So I think maybe just taking this moment to reflect on what that parent infant attachment actually means, where it gets developed, and deep diving into that a little bit more. And just to wrap up the previous thing, I mean, I know that I say to my son every day, what's our rule? Mommy always comes back. And it's
Mm,
something that
mm,
he developed because his attachment to me was so incredibly high that he didn't form that attachment with anybody else, like his dad
mm,
or grandparents or things like that immediately. So that separation anxiety, or that safe place for him, was knowing mommy always comes
mm.
back. And I
Yeah.
think having this discussion, it's important to show that every mother does things differently. But if that's something that can work for you, remind your child you're not leaving them there.
Mm,
You're not never coming back, but have those conversations with them, because they might be one, they might be two, they might be 6 months old. You having that communication with your child, I think, is such an important part of that attachment.
mm. Absolutely. And you've touched on so many important things. The one thing that I want to just chat about is that rupture and repair, right? Rupture and repair marks the mother-child relationship or the parent-child relationship where there's a rupture, child is taken to school, or sleep is a big rupture. Mom goes back to work. Even when baby's little and you go upstairs and they're downstairs in the playroom or whatever it is, that is a rupture for the baby. The separation is no
Mm,
longer here, or the person is no longer here. There's separation, but we have repair. We come back, and that is a
mm,
consistent pattern that happens really throughout life, and it's such an important thing to keep in mind as parenting is that we're going to mess up. We're going to make mistakes. We can't always be there, but the repair
mm,
is what counts. And as I get older, I can say I'm sorry. It's when you come back out of the room and they fall into your arms and you cuddle them. When you fetch them from school and you bend down and you smile. That's repair. That heals that, and it becomes a cycle of yes, we may be separated, but we will come back together. Um, and there's this huge pressure on moms of like, pregnancy is so wonderful. Oh, you're gonna feel so attached to your baby. Not everyone. Oh, goals an hour, you'll just feel it. Not everyone.
mm,
And there's so many moms who experience postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression. And even if you aren't experiencing it to a significant level that is diagnosed, your hormones are all over the show. I mean, you're recovering from birth, you're recovering from surgery. It's difficult. It's difficult, and there's so much expectation that this is what it's going to be like, and moms will tell you before, oh, you're going to love it, and it's just not the case for everyone, which is fine because attachment is something that happens over and over and over again and changes and looks different throughout the child's life. So it's not like a once-off thing that is like, oh my gosh, I need to have golden hour and breastfeed my baby and have skin to skin, otherwise we're not attached. And attachment isn't that. What I'd like to chat a little bit about is sort of the stages of attachment. And this perspective is developed by Dr. Gordon Newfeld. He is an amazing attachment and developmental psychologist. He's written a great book with Gabor Mate called Hold On to Your Kids. It's incredible. Every parent should have it. So when it comes to attachment, there's no one thing you have to do to be attached to your kids. There's actually 100 small things that you do that do help you attach. Obviously, we're not talking about cases where there's estrangement from
Mm,
parents or if there's domestic abuse. That does impact attachment, that does impact bonds. But again, if we're looking at, okay, I'm going to create this environment that is full of love and acceptance and delight, development will happen and attachment will happen, right? That nature is built that way. We are designed to develop. So if we look at that first year of life, what's really important is proximity. The child wants to be close to you, and you can think of that 0 to 1. You're doing a lot of holding. Baby is smelling you. They can feel you. They can hear your voice. They can, if you're breastfeeding, they can. There's like this element of taste as well. So it's really this full sensory experience of being close to you. And our children have to be close to us at that age, right? They're new to the world. They're there to keep them safe. So proximity is key, and that's why when we have you know experts or parenting perspectives coming out where it's like, oh, your child needs to be independent and they need to be
yes.
able to self soothe when they're like 6 months old, and you need to make sure that they're walking by 12 months. It's like, what? That's just not realistic. Where are you getting this from? Because based on their brain development, they need you to be close to them. They cannot regulate independently. We can emotionally regulate ourselves independently closer to when we're 24, 25. Other than that, we are dependent on adults, in this case parents, to do that regulation for us. So yes, that is why your baby is going to sleep better when you're holding them. That's why we shush and bounce our
Yes.
babies. Um, and when your child is dependent, they feel safe, they feel secure, they feel loved and supported, and then when they're ready, they will be independent. Um, they will at one point sleep in their own beds, but some of them need proximity. It's fine. Development will happen. If we look at that second year of development, we talk about sameness. I want to be the same as you. Um, I want to be like you. I want to be like my mom. I want to be like my dad. Um, and they start to identify with you as a parent. So you may see that they copy some of the things how you gesture, or some of the sayings that you have, and it brings them so much comfort. They want to be like you. They want to eat the same food as you, and this brings you them the sense of shared identity. Right? I belong. I'm starting to make sense of who I am. Then we look at in the third year of life, so 2 to 3, belonging and loyalty. Then that's sort of developing the sense of us and allegiance, right? I'm yours. I'm your baby. I'm your little boy. I'm your little girl. And that they want to belong, and they become so loyal to you. And you can see some little toddlers like, no, this is my mommy or my daddy. This is mine. It's because this is the next stage. I'm belonging and I'm loyal. Um, so then we move into the 3 to 4, and this stage is marked by
The
significance.
scary
That
stage.
I want to feel special and important to the caregiver. And I'm thinking of my little daughter now, who loves to perform for us and show us what she learned at school and tell us all these stories. They want to feel special and important and cherished. And it's that watch me phase. Watch me on the monkey bars. Watch me do this. And I think it's easy as parents, maybe this is just my reflection, to go, oh my gosh, again. But when they're doing that, that is part of healthy attachment and development. I want to be the
Yes.
center of attention. I want your recognition, right? It guides me, it guides my behavior, and I need your attention. Focused attention at this age is so, so critical. The next stage of development that we move into is the 4 to 5 years, and that's love. feeling connected to those who care for us. I love you and I want to be close to you because of that. And that's the child's motivating force for connection. I want to be around you because I love you. How beautiful is that? We're so lucky. Um, and then you can see they become a lot more affectionate with hugs and kisses and drawing you pictures, and their vulnerability and their tenderness sort of deepens. They want to be close to you. They want to show that affection. Um, and then the sixth stage, or the final stage of new self work, is being known. And that's when they share their inner world to be seen authentically. Wow, what a gift is that? Um, they open up about emotions, their thoughts, their dreams, their fears, their secrets, and that can be quite scary for parents. Because like, oh my gosh, my child's afraid of this, and my child's afraid of this, because we also have brain development on that side where their imagination is growing, and some of those fears can be quite scary. But wow, what a blessing and what a gift that we are privy to that emotional world of our kids. And each stage is so important, and each stage will come. We don't need to rush through all of that. We want our child to feel safe and seen and valued in those spaces. Um, of course, you can get stuck in some of those stages of development if there's trauma or stress, maybe new brother's born, or there's a loss of a loved one, or you're separated from your caregiver, or there's domestic violence, and you can get stuck in there. But again, if we create the right soil, the right environment, development will happen and it will continue. Um, and what we want is dependable parents, right? That the child can rest in the confidence of our relationship. We know what we're doing. We make them feel safe, even if we are bluffing, right? And I think that's true for all of us, is that we don't know what we're doing. And if you were doing our best, and if you had to ask our parents, they would say the same thing, that they didn't know what they were doing and they were trying their best, and you're just kind of winging it and bluffing it. And yes, you want to prove that with, use research and refer to the people in your life that you think are good parents, or that you admire, that you are the answer to your child. So part of that is also just stepping up and being the parent that they need and doing the work and recognizing when your triggers are brought up, recognizing when you're stressed and disconnected and having a bad day, so that when your child is with you, they can rest in you. You are the leader of the family. You are the leader of this ship, and they can take solace and go, oh, I'm so safe in this relationship. I can relax. I can rest. And when they feel rested, they can grow, learn, feel themselves. They're safe to be dependent. Again, we want to rush so much to be independent, to walk, to sleep in your own bed, to not cry. And it's just, we want actually our kids.
Can you Thank you so much for that, Jess. I think that detailed explanation of a rundown of the developments and the attachment and things that we expect or can expect, or that, is slightly different from one parent to another, is so incredibly insightful. Well, it is for me at least. I know that I resonated with quite a bit of what you said, especially because I know I'm in the 2 year stage right now, which is, I don't know, particularly difficult as a parent. But I think one thing I just wanted to touch on is, while we're talking about that attachment, how do the parent bonds, and adjustments for fathers in particular impact the child? We have a lot of this noise, once again, that we talk about, where if a child doesn't have his father that present, or if the father's bond isn't that well developed, that also leads to childhood trauma. Whereas sometimes I think we need to give fathers a bit of grace, in understanding that they might not have been able to bond with that infant, but the bond that they are now developing between the ages of 2 and 5, that sort of area, are quite fundamental. And then on that, sorry, I'm giving you a double barrel here,
No.
but I'm finding it from my personal experience very interesting. My husband didn't necessarily bond with our son, in the very beginning, but now that he's got a personality, he's talking a little bit, he's mocking and imitating certain behaviors. I find that bond has developed massively. But again, there's a lot of noise where they say that father child bond differs between a little girl and a little boy. Um, maybe we can just deep dive into that a little bit, that, particularly from a father's perspective.
Mm, mm. I think there's a lot of pressure on fathers, and I think that leads into expectations into the relationship as to what fathers should look like in the modern day era. And we know that the role of fathers is incredibly important. I mean, your child is primed to attach to the both of you. Now, I think there's a lot of societal expectation as well that, like, oh, dads like rough play, and dads, they don't like the baby phase. And so, that also like impacts your partner's expectation of, okay, what is fatherhood, and what type of dad was his dad, what did he have modeled to him. And obviously we can't remember those softer younger versions of our dads when we were newborns, and I think years ago there wasn't as much of an expectation of dads to be as involved in that newborn phase, or it was sort of like, oh, you don't need to be, it's all about the mom. But
Yes.
in that proximity phase, that first year of life, dads can absolutely be so involved. Like, hold your baby too, cuddle to
Yes.
sleep as well, baby wear. So that does all help feeling connected. I think personally, if I look at um, the dads in our friendship groups, and if I look at dads at practice, they most of them go, oh, I like the toddler stage a lot more. Like, there's more that I can do. I don't know. I got
Yes.
like, is that because there's an expectation that moms will just know all these developmental milestones, so the moms do more work? Or is this the fact that moms have maternity leave, so there's like more expectation for moms to bond with baby? Um,
Mm,
but either way, they are important, and either way, they are still attached to the kid in their own way. We are all individual, and we all bring something to our child's life. So even in those younger years, or like 0 to 1 years, my husband gives my daughter things that I could never give. And even now when she's 4, and even when my son's 2, he brings something different. And when you were talking about, oh, like there's a different bond between fathers and daughters and fathers and sons, and it's so dependent on the person you are as a father, right?
yeah.
There's some dads that go like, oh, I want to be a girl dad, like that's what I'm about, or oh, like, I want to have a boy, like I'm a boy dad, and then they get girls and they don't know how to navigate that. So it also depends on your own personality, your own experience of being parented, and that will impact what you bring into parenting as well, and how you view yourself
Mm.
and how you view attachment. And so there's no one.
Correct
It's not
answer
that.
there.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but you as a person are going to be what your child needs and how your child needs. And the parent that you are to your firstborn is a very different parent you are to your secondborn as well, because you've got a little bit more experience. You now with the second baby, maybe you don't have as much time to focus on the second baby. They have a sibling
Yeah.
in the house. So there's all of these contextual factors that impact the parent that you are. But absolutely, dads are so important because as a child, I see myself in you. We were talking about that sameness, that likeness. I identify with you. There's parts of me that are like you.
Mm.
Um, Now, if dad isn't in the picture, that is really sad for the kid. Like that, of course, they're going to miss out on a person that they come from that could be a source of care. But it's not always the
Yes.
scenario, and dad's not always safe. And what research shows us is that if we have one parent or one caregiver that is a safe space, that does value that child, that there is a secure attachment to, it'll buffer against that absence as well. So it's
Oh,
not,
wow.
oh my gosh, no, my child doesn't have my dad in his life, he's going to be messed up forevermore. There are buffers to that, but yes, it would be great for dad to be as equally involved as mom.
And I love that because it goes back to something that you were saying earlier, this expectation that once you become a mother, you know how to do everything. And I know from my
Exactly.
personal experience, and I'm sure from yours as well, but it was one of the scariest events of my life becoming a mother for the first time.
Mm,
You can be surrounded by friends that have kids and you learn how to hold a baby, you learn how to do those things, but it's very different when it's your own. And I think that that's one of the, I call it a myth, but it's some of the noise that I like to cancel out for a lot of the moms on this podcast is that if you are in an environment where your husband or your partner or your supportive other is or approaches you having a child, especially the first one, with the expectation that you should know how to do it and that's why the burden should fall on you, that is not the
yeah.
correct way. I
No.
think that that's where a lot of this postpartum stress, a lot of motherhood stress comes from because naturally you do feel obliged to take on 99.9% of the load.
Mm,
But it's important that the structure of having that first baby, whoever it may be with, that those conversations are had ahead of time. When the baby gets there, I
absolutely.
would really like to breastfeed, but I can also, as I used to call it, pump and bag, so that you can pick up a night shift, that you can
Yeah.
help me share this load because I don't know what I'm doing. And it's
Mm,
incredibly important for all the moms listening that that does not make you a bad mother. That does not make you a bad
no.
person.
It makes
That
you
makes
human.
you a responsible mother and a responsible person
Absolutely.
because the more burnt out you are, the less you're going to be able to give that child in the long run. So I don't know
Yeah.
if you agree with me on that, Jess, but I think it's so
Definitely. I
important
think
that the stereotypical 90 1950s approach to motherhood doesn't exist anymore.
no, not at all. I mean, and listen, most of us are working moms. It's not a reality for us. And even if you're a stay-at-home mom, there's that mental load of motherhood is insane. It's
Yes.
insane. And we could talk for hours about where it comes from and how we manage it. But there's, when you're having a baby, there's so much education and like sharing of information around like, okay, what to expect in pregnancy, um,
Yes.
what to expect how you're going to give birth, when baby arrives, what are you going to do? And no one is talking about the impact that it has on your relationship. No one is having conversations around like, hey, what kind of parents are we going to be? How do you feel about
Yeah.
discipline? Like, what do you think about discipline? What are we going to do when our child has a tantrum? Like, that comes in 2 years. You get there so quickly, not even 2 years, 18 months. That comes so
Yeah.
quickly, and parents have not had conversations around this. And now you're parenting from two different parenting styles. You guys are arguing. It's it takes a huge toll on your marriage because we're not having the right conversations before we have kids.
Mm, mm, mm. And I think it's one thing that you touched on as well is that as a mother you are naturally inclined to have more stress for your child than the father is. You are worrying about, are they hitting milestones, are they hitting them at the correct time, are they, especially as preemie parents. It's something
Mm,
you and I were powering about before we started recording, but it's, as a premature mother, not to isolate us and make us feel like we are in any way, shape, or form better or hard done by to normal parents that have full term kids. But with a premature kid comes a NICU journey, comes a journey that other moms might not experience. And with
yeah.
that, you are bringing a child into the world in a stressful environment already because you are
Mm-hmm.
worried about literally everything. Um, and milestones, I think, are another big thing where, as a mom, you feel obliged to ensure that your child is meeting those milestones. And if they're
Oh
not, why? Where
yeah,
that should be a broader conversation between both parents, where you can approach
yeah,
your husband or your significant other saying, I don't look, he hasn't or she hasn't started walking yet. They should have started 6 months ago. And the two of you need to come together and find a solution to that problem. And it might not be a problem, because one thing I've read in all of the noise is that sooner doesn't always mean better. And these
Mm.
milestones will be different for parents that have NICU children, depending on how soon or how early they came versus how early they didn't. And, the complications that came with their NICU journey. But I think what I'm honing in on here is that doing it on your own is not normal.
No,
It's not
it shouldn't
normal.
be normal. It's not normal. I mean, we didn't parent that way for years and years and years. And now
Yeah.
we're in this space where it's like, okay, we're going to like post about it on social media. So you're just,
Yes.
you, I feel like you're just more predisposed to compare because you're just seeing so much of everything. Like everyone else's
Mm,
private lives that you weren't privy to before. And again, you have this huge amount of access to information of your child should be doing this. And on the one hand, it's really beneficial because we don't want to do the, well, let's wait and see if they do. But if
yes.
you are anxious about something as a mom, like lean into that, get curious about it and go like, where is that coming from? Okay, is it coming from because we did have a preemie journey and that impacts that?
Yes.
Or is it coming from a place of like, I'm feeling, like my own childhood triggers, I'm not feeling good enough, I'm not feeling like the best. Um, and yes, absolutely, lean on your partner. And I think if you are a preemie mom, like lean on your champion team that you've got. Like find a pediatrician that you love. You can move pediatricians. You don't have to be stuck with the one that was there at the birth. If you
Yes.
need your OTs, your physios, find people that resonate with you and that champion for your child so that if you are a little bit anxious, you can ask.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that just leads us into the one side of your work that I think, if any of the moms, want, when we get to the end of this, if any of the moms want to reach out to you, I mean, you work very well, not just with, moms and parental attachments and things like that, but you do have a counseling space that allows for parents and their babies or toddlers, to come into a non-judgmental space, and you can help them through these processes if they are finding any of the elements that we've spoken about to this point difficult, or they're feeling overwhelmed or not sure how to process these things. And even if it's not with their baby, and it has, we've moved on from it not being about specifically the baby anymore, but you do help counsel couples, correct?
Right, absolutely. And that looks, I think you've like touched on everything. Thank you. But it's, you know, counseling and it's such a great space to just like let that load go. So
Mm,
yeah, with new moms, it's sometimes difficult logistically, sometimes emotionally to leave baby. So bring baby along. We do like parent infant mat work. We are sitting on the play mat, using different toys, chatting about development, hearing your concerns. So if attachment's a concern, we're focusing about that. If you do have concerns about milestones, like where can you go to, where do you need information, um, working with couples to go like, okay, cool, where are we in our marriage? Where are we as
mm,
parents? Where do we want to be? What are the things we need to work on? What's working really well? What can we do more of as well? And counseling can look so different because it can be, okay, we're really struggling with tantrums at the moment. Let's come in, let's try a few strategies, let's see what works. Cool, I will not see you again. And then
yeah.
other parents will come back in 3 months and go, like, okay, cool, this was working, but now this has happened. Where do we go? And sometimes that looks like parents joining in on the session with the kid. Sometimes it looks like just individual parenting sessions. More than often, I find it's if you can support the parents, they can trust themselves again and be that lead of the
Yes.
ship for their kids and be the answer that their kids need. And it's like, oh, cool, like we've actually got this. And then, yeah,
Yeah.
also like a space for couples, especially having kids, fathers as well also are prone to postpartum depression and
Mm,
postpartum anxiety as well. So
mm.
it's a great space to connect either individually, mom or dad, husband or wife, but also as a couple and come together as well.
I love that. And I'm a huge believer in always reiterating to the moms out there that getting help doesn't mean you have failed, doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. Getting help sometimes is the avenue of venting or that support
Mm,
that you're lacking somewhere else. And I think it's so important. I mean, I'm very pro counseling. My
yes,
fertility treatments and my journey to have my son was not easy. It took a massive toll on my
yeah,
marriage. It took a massive
yeah,
toll on me. And ultimately, the trauma leading up to actually having a child is
mm,
something I'm having to deal with and work through because I don't want that to impact his life.
yeah,
And initially, very open cards about it. I felt like such a failure. I mean, I thought,
yeah,
it's only the cuckoo birds that go get help. Like, I don't need this.
yeah,
I'm going to be fine. And it was only when I hit rock bottom and I realized that I was starting to isolate myself from my son and start
mm,
isolating myself from
mm,
my husband and my friends that this is not a medical condition per se. It might be for some people, but I needed help. I needed a support system
mm,
because my village doesn't look like anyone else's. I don't have anyone in my
yeah,
village. So
yeah,
getting that help and initiating that initial contact, whether it be with you or a therapist they might feel safer or, more in tune with, it doesn't matter who you're going to. The fact that you've made that step to ask for help in no way, shape, or form makes you a bad person, a failure, or any of the negative connotations that come with seeking help.
not at
Um,
all.
I'm
And I
very
think,
for it. I like if I could go to counseling every day, all day, I would.
oh, I
Um,
know, it's so great. I love my therapist as well. She's so amazing. And I remember when my daughter was in the NICU, we had a session and I was pumping and I was like, she's not going to know. And she's like, is that your pump in the back? I was like, I'm so sorry. She's like, oh, I've been there. It's like traumatic. I've got PTSD now. But it is also like crossing your village and like, it's, motherhood is brutal, but it also can give you such
no,
amazing bonds with people like to connect with. So, and absolutely what you're saying, like you're not a failure. We're all doing this for the first time.
yeah,
None of us have
yeah,
parented before, and that you've never parented this version of your child in this phase before. We're all doing it for the first time, and it's tough. It's tough, and no one's gotten anywhere without support. And I think that's such a great
exactly.
sort of thing to take into to raising your kids as well. They're going to need support at times as well. Wouldn't you want them if they were struggling to be able to say, "Hey, I need some help with this.
Yeah,
I'm not an expert at this. Like, let's get some
yeah.
support." So we all need support at different points. And also, like, therapy is not forever. Sometimes it is, and it's lovely, but it's not. If we're always like, we want you to get out of
It's not a chronic medical condition.
yeah. So we want you out. We don't want you to sit there forever. We want to get you out there
Yeah.
feeling good and feeling confident. Um,
Mm.
so, and listen, to make that first appointment, that's the scariest one. That's the hardest
Yes.
one to do. And after that, it gets easier. So if you can have that conversation with yourself and going like, this is the hardest. This is the worst I'm going to feel about this. This is the most anxious I'm going to feel. I'm not going to feel like this forever. And after that first session, you'll probably feel better. If you don't, then you find another therapist as well. Like that is also
Yeah.
so important. Is find someone you connect with. You go to a doctor, you don't like them, you find another doctor, you don't stop going to the doctor. So if you find a therapist and you don't like them, try a different one.
Exactly. Exactly. Not one size fits all is always my approach. Um,
Exactly.
but I think just to start wrapping up because we've had Jess here for a while now. I could speak to you all day, Jess. So maybe I need to contact you on the sideline,
Yes,
and we
yes,
make that
yes,
first
yes.
appointment. But I think what I would love for us to do as we come to the end of our podcast is in your profession and having done this for such a long period of time and as a mother, if you could give all the moms out there, let's say 5 top tips when it comes to developing the baby from birth to help them meet healthy milestones, what would those three tips be?
This is tough. I'm gonna say
Sorry.
I may not even I may not even have three tips. Can I have one and maybe like sub tips? But you are what your baby
Absolutely.
needs. You are what your baby needs. Your baby doesn't need 1,000 toys and be going to all these baby milestone classes and to be socializing at play school. Your baby, your little kid needs you. You are the answer
Oh,
to your child.
goosebumps. I got goosebumps.
So just as much as what you can, drown out the noise, be that safe space, delight in your child, be yourself, be your silly self, be your playful self, be your loving self, be your kind self, because you are what your baby needs.
See, I mean, I asked for top tips, and here I am, just like almost in tears with goosebumps everywhere
Well,
because I think it hits home for so many of us because you don't see it in the very early stages, but let me tell you, you
mm,
start seeing all of that effort and all of that that you put in
mm,
once they start becoming little people, and it's so special. It is such an incredibly
mm,
amazing place to be when you notice when you have a smile on your face and you get that little crack of energy, how they do exactly
oh,
the same thing. When you're having a bad day, it's okay, those bad days happen, but your baby has them too. And
absolutely.
it's just what you said is so, so special because I know my son is literally, he mimics everything. He picks up on my energy. When
Mm,
I shout at the dog, he now all of a sudden wakes up 2 days later shouting at the dog. So I think that's so important to remember. Like they are little sponges,
they
but
are.
the significance. I don't want to take away from the significance of what you said. Is you are all you need to be for your child, and that's just wow. That's so so important.
And
Um,
like, what a gift.
Jess,
How
thank
lucky are
you.
we to do that?
I know. I mean, who gets to play that kind of a role in their life? I
Oh,
mean, the fact that we do is, or that if even if we get to do it more than once, I mean, I'll take it. I'll take it there.
yeah.
It's super special. And I mean, I know I'm back on my journey to have a second one because I've just fallen so madly, deeply in love with this
Oh,
journey. As hard as what it's been, and let me tell you, I am not going to mince my words. It's fucking difficult.
it's so, it's
But
the hardest thing we'll ever
once you
do.
experience you experience it once, and I think it's the best natural drug any mom could feel.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Oh, it is
and
so, so good.
like
And
I
to
say,
see like realistic
I'm
it.
not going to discredit the moms that don't feel that way. It's okay. It's okay. It might not be happening for you right now, but you will get there.
Yeah.
And the importance of podcasts like this is to show that people like you exist, that are here to support and here to figure out a strategy and a method that works, so that you can get to that really beautiful stage of motherhood, that I'm currently in. It's beautiful but messy. It's messy,
Yes.
um,
And that is
but
motherhood. Well, I'm so glad to hear that you are enjoying it as well. That's if you're
I,
happy,
I
they're
love
gonna also enjoy it.
I love it, and it has not come easy. I am a If I was to sit in an AA meeting, I could introduce myself as a postpartum mom, highly anxious mother, fertility
Yeah.
issue mom, preemie mom. So I mean, there's a lot of tags that go with it, but the reason, and I said this to you earlier when we first started our conversation, the reason I started this podcast was so that people that don't have all those tags but have some of them might not have
Mm,
them that they know about yet, but listening to this,
mm,
it triggers something, and it shows that we are a huge huge team of people that
mm,
are all experiencing something, if not all of it, at the same time, and taking away this horrible taboo that we are bad mothers or we shouldn't feel this way, we don't have a right to
yeah.
feel this way, is
Right.
where we need to completely just shatter this. It's not a taboo, it's normal, and the more we talk about it, the
Normal.
more we actually creating a village.
Exactly. That's
So
what I'm thinking now. Is like I love that you've created this village because I think in this day and age, like people immigrate, we're all working. It's difficult to have your village, but if you can create a village online where anyone can access it, how incredible!
I love that. And I love that. And I'll tell our moms how long it actually took us to have this podcast because we had life happening. I think Jess approached me in like April. We had our first discussion, and look at us, we're at the end of July.
That we
So
did.
there is just one example of how it's life. This is life. We're working moms. We have crazy things going on, but if you can make that time, I really think that it's so important. So when I know there's going to be a mom out there somewhere listening to this podcast, busy filling a washing machine at midnight, or unpacking a dishwasher at 3 o'clock before her baby wakes up for the next feed. So just know you are not alone.
Not alone. We all are
It
there.
happens to the best of us. So as we come to the end, I can't believe we're at the end. I could speak to you, like I said, for hours and hours and hours. But I think to wrap up, if we could just let people know how they can get in touch with you. I am going to drop your details for everybody in the first comments on Spotify and YouTube. But it's always nice to hear it directly from you, and that will be us.
Awesome. So you can find me. I'm at Douglasdale Therapy Centre. So our website is www.douglasdaletherapycentre.co.za. Or you can also find me on Instagram. It's the Shrink Chick. And yeah, you can reach out to me. Probably our website's easy. Give us a call. Or yeah, through Instagram as well.
Jess, you are incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time out today with the technical issues and everything else. I really, really appreciate you giving Moms After Dark over an hour of your time and really helping us understand a little bit more about the myths and the noise that's happening in and around us. And yeah, thank you. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much. This has been so much fun, and yeah, it's such a privilege to get to work with moms, and yeah, I'm so honored to be a part of this.
Thank you, Jess.